All right, we'd like to call today's meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for being in attendance. You've had a chance to view the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda today?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And you also had the chance to look over the minutes from the last board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Dr. Frieden.
Board members, I want to recognize Whit McKee tonight. Whit, as you know, is our Director of Public Relations behind the camera, extraordinary in so many ways. He was, as you know, the state's Public Relations Director of the Year last year about this time. I think we surprised you with that. During the course of the year, we received state recognitions for two communication types. One was our 4 Habits for Health communications, and one was our 50th anniversary campaign. Whit recently attended the national conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, of the Association of Public Relations Officials, and he was awarded an Excellence in Communication Award from the National Association for our 2021 Teacher of the Year video. Congratulations, that's outstanding.
And Rick, just for once, come around on this side of the camera so everybody.
Yeah, the last time I was on camera, I was having to show off that St. Louis Cardinals lapel pin that Dr. Martin made me wear.
What I appreciate about this award is it's an in-house video category. So in other words, he did it himself. It wasn't produced anywhere else, but produced professionally in-house, which to me adds another level of accomplishment to it. So very thankful for Whit and what he does for us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good work. All
All
right.
right, great job with it.
Okay. Another outstanding, extraordinary person, our Chief Finance Officer, is going to deliver our school financial statement.
Good afternoon. As of June 2021, I provided you the check register and financial statements as of June 2021. At the end of that month, we collected 95.3% of our budgeted ad valorem tax revenues compared to 95.7% that we had received last year. And our total expenditures as of the end of June was 76.9% of the budget, and that's compared to 77.8% last year. All things being equal, at the end of June, we should be at 75% of our budgeted expenditures. So 76.9% is a good place, especially since we've paid our debt service payments for the year. And all board bank accounts have been reconciled as of June 30, 2021.
Thank you, Courtney. I recommend the board approve the financial statement for June 2021.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the financial statement. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 6, I recommend the board approve consent items related to student transfer, overnight trips, and disposal of property.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation for consent items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Board members, under business, item A is a recommendation to approve a change to board policy 7.3.5, and this is related to retention.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the revision to board policy 7.3.5. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Steve, if I may, before you guys do, just a quick background on this one, if you will, because this is related to the next item as well, because it's in our handbook. We just want to make sure it's consistent. But this year, it gave us an opportunity to look at this policy with retention specifically as it relates to middle grades. So let me just inform the board what we're planning.
Our policy had been sort of vague regarding retentions in middle school, and so this gives a clearer outline of the expectations, and so parents and students and administrators are all on the same page with the expectation for retentions. And so do you want me to go into specifics of what it says?
Well, they've got it in their writings for the two courses that we failed in the middle grades that would require summer school. We were able to do summer school this year without having to enforce the policy. We had a number of people that attended that. I forget the exact count of summer school students, but I've got it somewhere in my notes. 30 or so students, I believe, participated in that.
All right, we've had a second. Do we have a vote? All in favor? Thank you.
Item B, I recommend approval to the updates to this parent and student handbook.
Any comment on it?
The only thing I'd say is this specifically related to the board policy, just to approve and make sure the retention language was in there.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation for approval of the parent-student handbook. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C is information only. It is entitled the School Incident Report, or what we affectionately call the SIR. The School Incident Report is a report that lists infractions and dispositions that we have to report to the state because they typically result in a change of placement for the student, being ISS or out of school suspension or expulsion. It is not a comprehensive report of all discipline in our schools. It's only that has to be submitted to the state. Ms. Bailey is responsible for that report and provided all that information to you, and I particularly appreciate the summary. I think that's helpful to them, but I want to pause here to see if you have questions for Ms. Bailey about this report.
I do. Could you explain the difference in what is state mandated to go on incident report and then what is all-encompassing discipline?
Sure, absolutely. Like Dr. Freeman said, what is reported to the state is any change of a student's placement, and that's in school suspension, out of school suspension, or alternative placement. Expulsion is also considered in that, but we don't do very much of that. But those are the things that are reported to the state. More in depth on that, an ISS, there are local codes and there are state codes. So if the student is repetitively tardy, they might receive ISS for that, but it would be under the local code and not necessarily reported to the state because it's not like a fight or something like that. And so that's the difference in what is reported locally and what is reported as a requirement of the state report, the SIR report. Just as information for you all, as we're moving over to Power School, we're trying to align the two of those more closely so that we have a more accurate report of all changes of placement. And so there's not confusion and doesn't look like there are disparities in placements or things like that to try to circumvent anything that would look like a disparity.
SR primarily designed for the state to look at violent offenses or things of that, or disparities that can result from disciplinary dispositions. So that's largely it, and it's an accountability piece that all boards have to have notification of each year. So that's why you're seeing it is not the total picture.
Can we, when we do this each year, can we include their report, but can we also include a total picture of what we're?
We can, and we can do it next month if you
Sure.
want, if you want to see just a breakdown. It's healthy to do it for you. That way you get more of a full picture. So because if discipline is something you want to see, this probably is not your best report.
I will tell you, when I look at it as a parent and board member, it does not give me, look, my kids are in school and I'm gonna get on my soapbox because I can't. Right, discipline is viewed as a negative, but we're in business educating, so we should have discipline, we should have discipline reports, and we should see these things rolled up and look at them in the whole picture. That's why I ask, because I think they get negatively viewed because they get turned into the state, but discipline is not a negative thing, right? That's how we maintain order in our schools, and our faculty should know that they should be able to discipline, and the admin backs them up, and the central office backs up the admin, and the board backs up the central office. So if we could see a whole picture, it doesn't have to be next month, but
Happy to do.
Yeah,
I
I think that would be appropriate.
Were there any trends, like I noticed that the category for defiance and disobedience seemed to be higher in the last 2 years. It was very helpful to show that there was a note that talked about the inappropriate use of technology was probably higher because everybody had their own device.
Right.
Are there any other trends or anything else that you noticed in putting the report together?
We looked at those, and if there are some specific that you'd like for us to address next month, please let me know, and I'm glad to do that. We did look at race, gender, we looked for trends related to those types of things, and we didn't see any. And that's in both the SIR and the overall discipline reporting. Any trends that I saw, like the technology that you mentioned, those were things that I included in the summary. So not necessarily. And again, I think the technology even it's not necessarily because we're one-to-one. I think it's the uniqueness of the year and trying to police, for lack of better words, how students are using that off campus and on campus and having to transition back and forth. So just that, to me, that's an anomaly.
And it's, while we don't want any disrespect, disobedience, defiance, that's a much better measure than large numbers of, theft and
Sure.
alcoholization, biting, et cetera. So that's a catch-all one too, Scott. There's a lot that gets dumped in defiance, disobedience, as you can imagine. That's probably the one that would be most used in my house. So it's a typical, as you should say,
Sure.
catch-all. So we'll put together a comprehensive report for you.
But yeah, just out of curiosity, and this is not being silly in any way, did we get any reports from parents whose children were homeschooling at the time?
You mean for technology use?
Technology use?
We
anything?
we get reports that are automatically generated and sent to us if there's something, for example, that is of concern or part of a filter if a student has searched for it. So we get those whether they're at home or with us,
Okay.
and we address those immediately. And that's for safety in a variety of ways. It could be something where a student is looking up something that could jeopardize his or her own health.
Right.
And so, yeah, we do address those. In fact, we've had conversations about how to balance that this summer.
I was
with
gonna say, you
them having-
technically are getting this summer, because
Yes,
all the Chromebooks are at
yes.
home.
And so we've had some schools it's obviously been a communication to parents, and if it's happened repetitively, there's been a ask to bring it back to the school. Not a mandate by any stretch, but an ask.
So if we get a notification, we'll let the parents
That's
know.
right, absolutely. And sometimes a counselor might be involved even.
Thank you. All right.
Item D is student fees, and I wanted to make sure that you'd seen these. This does not require action from you, but I certainly want you to be aware of it and answer questions that you have about it. But our principals and their assistants and bookkeepers underwent a pretty exhaustive look at student fees this year. I appreciate everybody doing that. One of the things that I wanted to be cautious about was if we were carrying any type of balances that were inordinately large balances, because when student fees are paid, they're for designated purposes. And I found it very good report that we were carrying large balances. Some secondary accounts were, but they had much to do with field trips or lack thereof of them the past year, or things that have not yet been encumbered into their balances. So we made a couple of adjustment of fees, I think, at the freshman campus based on this study, and that was good. The elementary ones you'll see are largely together. The only difference of elementary fees have to do with field trips. They have little nuances to different things they'll do on field trips. But the basic fees are all the same. And that's a good thing as well.
So these go into effect basically tomorrow.
Yes, so tomorrow we've sent an email out on that, but tomorrow morning there'll be a blast that goes to every parent that will open up the fee portal for them. We did some trial runs today to make sure that they're set and ready to go, and they're in good shape. And for 612, I believe it's a schedule open as well, so that they'll be able to see their schedules. K5 will not see their schedules tomorrow, but they'll be able to open up fees and everything's in there. I saw it all.
Most anticipated day of the summer.
So we're ready to go tomorrow.
Question on fees. What is the policy in terms of what is permissible for a fee and what should come out of the general budget? How do we decide?
Yeah. Instructional textbooks, things of that nature are not, you cannot assess fees toward. There's some guidance on that in Alabama code about that, where you're able to charge fees or supplemental type things, programs, field trips, additional supplies. But as it relates to the curriculum itself, these are textbooks, those are not allowable expenses. So you don't see the breadth of fees in K-8 that you do in 9-12 because the law governs more strictly what can be charged.
Do we have programs in place if students have trouble paying these fees, even if they want to pursue a certain class or activity?
There are, in fact, the high school has a fee, I forget the exact name of it, Courtney. Rebels Helping Rebels, yeah. This actually, you saw probably in that structure, they keep a fee that people, well, they keep it a balance that people can pay into, and for families that may need some assistance, Rebels Helping Rebels does that. So it's grassroots with our kids that do that, which I think is a nice thing.
All right, quick question for business. We need no action on the incident report that was
That's
received.
just information.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Item 8 is personnel, and I recommend the board approve personnel actions as submitted to you.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation on personnel. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Board members, a point of privilege on this. Part of the recommendations that I made here this evening for you is that of an athletic director. We've been in search of one of those, as we have a lot of our positions, and I'm happy to report tonight that our teacher positions are 99.9% filled. I think we have one remaining out there, but I'm feeling very good about that particular situation. When you look across the news and see the number of schools that are having a hard time staffing, we've been up to staff, and I'm very pleased with that. But as it relates to athletic director, that was on the agenda tonight, and you did approve Myra Miles to be the athletic director effective August 2nd, which begins next Monday. And Coach Miles comes to us from most recently University of Tennessee, where she had been serving as an assistant to the head coach for 3 years. And prior to that, people in our community would most know her from having been an athletic director at Hoover City Schools for a number of years. And just a fine person, will be a great part of our program, is eager to get started. So on her first day, May 2nd, excuse me, it's when is it? August 2nd, next Monday, August 2nd. On her first day from noon to 2, we'll be sending out an invite, but from noon to 2 at the gymnasium at the high school in the lobby, we'll have a meet and greet for Coach Miles. Hope you're able to make it. That was a time that was going to work well for her. We'll get her kicked off well and started. But we'll get you out an invitation. We'll do the same, Kimberly for council and others that will be coming as well. Very pleased with that. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Martin, Ms. Roselle, for great work on that. Okay, I want to provide to you a few administrative reports for this evening. I will not cover the superintendent goals, although I just want to make sure that you're aware that those exist. That's part of the agreement I have to serve as your superintendent.
That's refreshing.
Yeah, they're there, and you'll get monthly updates from me about those goals, but certainly I'm happy to entertain questions about them. I wanted to talk specifically about our strategic plan update and our operations goal for the year. So the document you have under item A, strategic plan update, is to let you know about what we're doing as a district and in focus areas this year. So I gave you a document that shows you a lot of things that have been happening this past year as they relate to our pictures of success. And it's a great work that Dr. Martin and Dr. Randy's teams have put together. That's just a good ongoing dialogue about what we're doing with our strategic plan. But I wanted to make sure you knew focus areas this year. And so as it relates to our first goal, which is to ensure that students learn and demonstrate a profound understanding of knowledge and skills consistent with expectations of teachers, parents, and the community, ensure that students find value and meaning in the work provided to them. I want to point out to you that this goal is about teaching and learning. That's what our priority is. And when it comes to learning, I think it's really important that anyone, a student, a parent, a community official, anyone who wants to know what we're teaching can see what we're teaching. And so we provide content standards and we provide curriculum so that that's available. I asked Whit to cue this up right quick. It's up on our website. I just wanted you to see where you can go. But if you go to teaching and learning, you'll see right at the top content standards and curriculum. And you can go in there and see what the state requires that we teach in content standards. And you can see what our approved textbook lists are as well. We've got secondary ready to go up. It's It should be up there pretty quick for you, but we want to make sure that's available to people. That's an easy place to get to and take a look at what's being taught in our classrooms. This year, an emphasis point for us has been the area of computer science specifically, and more generally STEM. And so we're offering computer science in middle schools this year. We're offering professional development for computer science in our elementary grades. We have a pilot STEM class, which is a specials class being offered at Vestavia Elementary Liberty Park this year. I look forward to seeing how that works, and we would ultimately love to see a pilot in all of our schools and it no longer be a pilot. And so we look forward to how that's going to help inform what we do moving forward. We have expanded dual enrollment. We have threefold, I think, expanded dual enrollment opportunities for students this year in high school. And I wanted to make sure you had seen this chart because I think it's compelling to note the number increase that we have of students taking dual enrollment courses and how that has not jeopardized or impacted our advanced placement courses. To me, that speaks to students who may not necessarily have been doing AP, but want to do something to get ready for college. And so you can see a 5-year trend of that. I hope it helps inform you of why I thought that was so important to see, and I'm very pleased to know that that relationship is growing with Jefferson State Community College, especially, and to some degree, Alabama Early College. So I'm gonna pause on that for just a moment, see if you have questions with it.
I would say as a parent of a rising senior, that's fantastic, right? So they're taking college credit while they're under my roof, not quite mature yet. And, you know, she never took AP, but she can take this, and being able to offer that. If you ever looked at our course book, it was like probably 15 pages in the course book of what we offered. So thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
That's an excellent addition.
And as a parent of college-age kids, I really wish it had been in place. For those of you who kids, they're not in college yet, it's anything that they can do in Vestavia to get that step ahead, or one of those classes that you have to pay for in college is huge. And I mean, we're giving our kids a leg up. That's a great advantage for them going in whatever they're going into. So.
I think the middle school advanced course offerings will make a difference as well, both in the advanced placement enrollments and dual enrollment. And you can see what those look like. They continue to increase in grades 6 through 8. This will be the second year that we've offered that in all of our core areas.
Did you say computer science at elementary?
We're doing professional development in elementary, and we'll be preparing to, this is part of the governor's initiative of computer science that we've been trying to stay on top of. So we use a curriculum called Project Lead the Way that will be in the middle schools, and we're doing training on it. I believe it's this year for implementation next year. We'd love to have that in our STEM classes, you know, like we're doing at VL. I hope we're able to get to that point. But that would be the ideal way to implement that in my view.
Is the STEM program at Big Help, is it a class that you rotate through, or?
It's like it's referred to as
Like a
special,
special?
helping with that. So they'll be
Okay.
in there one day a week generally. I think that's right.
for-
Like they would PE, but not PE, but like they would library or art and music. Yeah, it's a unified art.
I just got a new laptop. I can't operate, so
I'm sure
I may need to hire your kids, so.
They're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Our teacher there is a veteran teacher.
Yeah.
We'll put in that position.
That's good. That's
Yes, those are exciting things. One of the things that we have seen coming at the high school was increasing demands for what is amount to be about 90% of our students who go to college. And we have had one full-time college counselor there, and one we contracted with, it was a retired teacher or retired counselor. And we have added, you did actually this spring, a second full-time counselor to the staff. So I think that's most beneficial. Our second strategic plan goal is embracing our leadership role in developing common understandings and shared community support for confronting the problems and challenges that impact system, youth, and families. This is more of the goal that looks at the limits that we have, and I would acknowledge that we're always going to have limits. It would be disingenuous to say it's not, but it's a motivation for us to continue to work toward those. But the focus in this goal is on safety and health, social emotional support, character education. I'm going to cover some of the safety, the health aspects in a few minutes in another report. But we have, part of our capital plan has been a partnership with DLL Solutions in putting together a safety and security audit for our schools. And you've seen that information. We will be putting more implements of that into place throughout this school year and into the summer. And I don't usually get into the specifics of that in meetings, but just know that that has been comprehensively done, Dr. Martin and his team, to amp up our ability to provide a safe environment for our students. I'm real pleased with that. You'll see some improvements taking place throughout the school year. I think I want to really emphasize that one of the important pieces of this work is social emotional supports. And we have a great partnership with Hope Institute at Sanford University, and through their Hope Academy, we are sending teachers through trainings basically that focus on character education. 3 of our schools have been nationally recognized for their work just in this past couple of years, and we are entering the 2nd full year of our entire district being part of Hope Academy. And so all the principals have teams that go to this, and I think, and you may can help me, principals, on this, but essentially we're talking about core values is what drives how we talk about character. And so all of our schools have different things, whether it's the West Way or the Dollar Ridge core values, or East has their Eagles program. They're all are focusing on how core values drive our conversation about character. And it's also important to note that we believe one of the pillars of our strategic plan, the appreciation of diversity, works best when it's done through the lens of character. We don't talk about that through the lens of a curriculum. We talk about it through character development. And I'm pleased at how this partnership has grown with Hope Academy. We will continue to do that this year with additional cohorts of teachers. And I think I'm going to pause a minute. Alicia's been doing this the longest time, I think, and maybe Kim right with her. Anything you want to just add? I think you can add a little better color to this, and I'm giving.
We just have teachers that go and then they can come back and do turnaround training. There's a huge emphasis on renowned authors that have written books on character, and it's a full day training. Year 1 is like 6 days of the year, and it's just very enlightening, and it's very invigorating to come back and talk about character and empathy and sympathy and acceptance. And you know, even though like we have our 3 big words, but that doesn't mean we discount all the other ones. Alicia, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, I think I would just add that it's really about building a culture of character in your schools, and that can only happen with people. So you can, you know, with professional development, you can outline, you know, we want to learn these content standards and we really want to focus on the academics, but with this, the social emotional character piece is all about the relationships that we have and the culture that we want to build in the school, and that's hard to measure. You know, it's hard, but you know when you go in a school if you feel like the people care about the kids that they're working with, and I think that is unique in all of our schools. But each school has its own culture, and so I think making teachers a part of that learning process where they understand that. You know, when we think about investing in character, we have to teach it and we have to be explicit about it. And kids don't just happen upon those things. Like we teach them to be good kids. We teach them to be kind. We teach them to be empathetic. And so it's really the teacher's role to do that. And so Hope Academy just gives you an opportunity to kind of meet with other teachers that are doing it in a variety of ways all across our state. And how can we work together to ensure that we're providing those opportunities for our kids. So.
Do they provide, like, I know we send teachers there, but do they provide curriculum, like if you wanted to do a whole group with your staff or curriculum for the
It's
classroom?
really more about you building your own curriculum for
Okay,
what, so when you
teacher
establish your core values, like at Cahaba Heights, we established our core values, and then that's the curriculum that drives the work.
Okay.
Because the students and teachers voted on those, and that's what's
So you develop
important
your
to that.
culture and
Yeah.
work it through your school.
You don't buy a program. I mean, they're there's no program. I mean, there's a million of them out there, but that's not what they want. They want you to model and to teach, like what does that mean to be empathetic? And so it's culture building for the students and the relationship and Olga's relationship. It's huge social emotional piece. And it's how you care for one another within your building, adults too.
You know, they will send facilitators. If you want to work with your faculty, you could ask for a facilitator from Hope to come and help you develop that with your faculty.
And all of our schools participate.
They do, they all participate. And those facilitators are typically educators, retired educators. They've been in the classroom. This is a fine partnership, and you can learn about it. Parents can, anyone can see how this is done. We have a resources tab on our website. It's for parents and students and families, where you can go down and find out about the Hope Institute and all the other things we do with student services. make sure you were aware of that as well. One of the student services we think it is very important that we value is the work of our counselors. And we do have 22 counselors, and I'm pleased that we have that number to support our students. One of those is a social worker. This year, we want to grow the work that our counselors are doing and support them and be better in different ways. One of the things Ms. Bailey just got awarded last week was a grant from the state to provide for a mental health therapist coordinator in our district. And the way we'll use the funding from that is we'll basically create a partnership with Impact Counseling for a mental health therapist for our elementary students. So we'll have someone designated specifically for those grades. That was where our counselors zeroed in on where the priority would be. I'm very pleased. Congratulations on getting it for us. It's something we can put in place this year. We're also required by law to provide mental health training for teachers, but we want to do that in an authentic and genuine way, not necessarily just something that they have to read or sign off on. So during the course of this year, Ms. Bailey will be providing, our counselors will be providing mental health training to better equip our teachers in this really important area. Anything you want to add about that?
Super excited about it. I think the framework for that will be a program called Youth Mental Health First Aid. And so the goal is really to train teachers at the beginning of the year just on things that they commonly see, and that's based on what they tell us, things like depression and trauma in students, and how to identify that, but then how to intervene for students in their classrooms in the same way they would for a student who is struggling to read. And so then throughout the year, we'll do smaller sessions that ultimately lead to the opportunity next summer for them to pursue the mental health first aid certification. And the counselors and I did that year before last. And even though they've been through, a master's program in counseling and countless trainings, they talked about how powerful that certification process was. So that's our goal, to be able to do that and just equip teachers to feel more comfortable supporting students.
Our last goal was to strengthen leadership management staffing systems committed to advancing the mission, beliefs, and goals of the strategic plan. So several parts of that. Basically, this is our system way of supporting goals 1 and 2. One of emphasis point I wanted to make you aware of again is professional learning communities. This is something we've been investing in for a number of years in our school system, but we have had a system commitment in the past 2 years. This really starts the second year of this work. As a system on professional learning communities. You can read all about those communities. They are things that have been in place for a number of years. Basically, it's providing time for job-embedded professional growth, where we can zero in on what needs of students are and how we can help them, how we can grow those that are flourishing, how we can help the ones that are struggling. If you think about this from just a business perspective, successful organizations have certain percentages of their budgets they place in R&D. And if you think about school systems, we don't necessarily have a model like that, but our principals have committed to this job-embedded time where they've made their schedules in such a way that we can focus and invest with our teachers in just good quality professional growth. And there's a lot of different ways they'll use PLCs this year, but there's a set of system commitments that all our principals are 100% supportive and bought into, that we're going to move into our schools and continue to grow this area. It's transformational even for a really good school system like Vestavia. I've listed a few of some of the high-performing schools in the nation that have used model like this. But it's got great power because it's the power of collaboration. And some of our principals can speak to it if you want to, but I wanted you to see this. I wanted you to see survey results that have been done from January's training on this, what our teachers were saying about it. I see really good outcomes in the initial part, but this year we're going to really zero in on focusing on our guaranteed curriculum and standards. And it's important for me to fall back to you and say that the standards we teach are the ones the state gives us. And that's the place that we will be focusing in on. And we're going to be talking a lot about fair and consistent practices related to grading and assessment. I think that's always a good conversation to have, and we're getting more deep conversation about it. So another system component to what we do to support our teachers and staff is capital planning. Yes.
So, and I didn't, this one I didn't intuitively on this when I joined the board, but PLCs at the secondary level basically are done through a planning period, right? We give our teachers an additional planning
Yes.
period over what most school systems would, and I don't think that's obvious, but that speaks to the commitment that
Yes.
the central office and principals have given, that literally you have what equates to almost 2 plan periods, a plan for your day, for your grade and stuff, but you also have a plan that you can then meet in your PLCs. So I don't want to shadow over that, because embedded in your day is a lot. That's
That is.
55 minutes of your day, every day, that our principals have devoted to
Yeah.
that type of.
It's a major
training
commitment,
and teamwork.
and I've said a major investment in it. And this year, all elementary schools have schedules as such that they have periodic times. They can't do it every day, but they've been able to manipulate schedules to get it to a point where they can provide more of the shop at a time, which I think teachers value in many ways, but if we can reduce the time they're out of class when they're having to do this type of professional learning, that only helps our students. So really thrilled to see where this is headed. Capital planning, another thing that we do, just quickly for you, the short-term capital plan goals that you'll see in August when we do budget hearing will be related to security, will be healthy school environments, minor facility improvements and technology. Our long-range capital plan that you'll see as well in August focuses on providing excellent spaces for academics, arts, and athletics, and having the capacity to support future endeavors. It's an exciting few months ahead for us and looking at what we want to do with long-range capital. And I look forward to sharing more about that with you in the coming months. And of course, we have a financial commitment we want to maintain in our school system. That's that we keep a 2-month reserve in our general fund. The state requires 1. We think that we're going to end somewhere about in the middle of that by the end of this fiscal year, which I would express great appreciation to Courtney, because the volume of things that we've had to do within our budget the last 5 years has been enormous. Getting projects completed, it's been well worth it, but that doesn't mean it's been easy. So we're starting to move back into a really good position with our general fund budget. And finally, part of our system that I think is the most important part is that we recruit and retain the best teachers that we can retain. And the same for all of our other staff. It's equally important that we get the best of the best. I wanted to provide some figures to you because I thought it's important for you to see what that looks like on a 5-year look. And the main thing I think you'll see different this year is we have more retirees than we've had in recent years, which is in line with the state's record-setting year of retirees for a lot of obvious reasons this year. That being said, our retention for certified employees has remained very strong, above 90%. I'm really pleased to see that. That's a good sign of a system that is focusing on providing the best for our teachers, supporting them through salary, through appropriate resources in the classroom, through professional growth, all of the things that I think study after study will say are important to teachers. So probably the most important one being the administrative support they get at the schools, and I think that goes without saying that we've got the best of the best there. So those are the focus areas of the district operational strategic plan this year. Do you have any questions about those? It's a lot in a few minutes, but I want you to get an idea of it.
Well, I will say, for those of you out there, but the board knows it, the central office knows it, it is constant motion in this building here with our administration. There are exciting things coming in the future that will be revealed later at a later date. But one of the things in the interview process when we were looking for a superintendent that Dr. Freeman stood out on was he's very methodical. He's not quick to act or react. And as somebody who's quick to act or react, you know, but we got a good G-Haul going here, technical term. But it's proven true. The interview process has proven true that, you know, he studies things and then he develops a plan. He works with those around him and with them to develop the plan and implement the plan. And so everybody, Dr. Freeman and his team are doing wonderful things. And it's just going to be great for the employees and especially the children in Vestavia for the future.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Well, we are heading toward the start of school. It's on August the 10th. Let me make sure we've sent this out in a message, but let me say it publicly. August 10th is a full day for if you are in grade 6 through 12. And if you're in grades K through or pre-K through 5, it is a day where you'll meet your teacher. So scattered throughout the day, depending on where you fall in the alphabet, and the F's fall a little bit after lunch that day. I know when I'm meeting our teacher, that happens in our elementary teachers meeting. We felt like that was an important thing to do this year. Our principals were very passionate about the need to do this, to reintroduce parents back in the buildings, back in the circumstances that we've not seen as much, of course, over this past year. For a number of students who are coming back to us, we felt like an acclimation period would be important. And I believe that is the day that they'll get their class rolls. Is that right? Or they'll see whose class roll they're on. All right, very good. Okay, I'm going to just make some comments about our reopening plan that's been posted on our website since June, our last board meeting, some comments related to that. The plan for opening school on August 10, 2021, like last year, considers a number of organizations and agencies' recommendations provided to schools. Fortunately, we have all access to the same information. That includes everyone sitting in the room. Each one of us also sees the same information related to infection rates and variants of COVID-19. I have contemplated that information and recommendations given to schools along with our system and other systems' experiences in the spring and summer. As you know, a number of systems, some locally, made the decision in the spring for masks to be optional for staff and students. The data on infection rates from those systems when this change was made was informative and led us to confidently move to normal operations this summer. To date, approximately 1,800 of our students, which represents about 26% of our enrollment, participated or are participating in activities that include summer school, literacy camp, athletic camps, band camp, dance, summer EDP, and cheerleading. And as of this evening, we have reported one COVID-19 case to the Alabama Department of Public Health, and one student was quarantined, but not determined if that was a positive for COVID-19. As with last year, we consider the recommendations provided to us and implement those that we feel are best for our schools. We did not implement all recommendations last year and do not plan to do so at this time this year. Our plan emphasis is on healthy habits, indoor air quality, and cleaning and disinfecting practices. So I'd like to talk about each of those. The 4 Habits for Health emphasizes a daily regimen of checking for symptoms at home and not coming to school if you're sick. We also encourage washing hands and covering your mouth and nose when you sneeze. These are health practices that have long been a standard of care in our schools and have been successful considering the thousands of students that walk our halls each day. I do want to emphasize that while masks are optional for staff and students, I encourage anyone who wants to wear one to do so. Respecting and valuing others is part of our core values in schools, and I would expect nothing less as it relates to this. A difference in our plan this year is related to contact tracing. Our state superintendent has said that schools would not be doing contact tracing in the same manner as last year, as this is a responsibility of public health. For informational purposes, one of the frustrations that we experienced last year was the high number of students who were quarantined but did not develop COVID-19. 1,787 students, to be exact, were quarantined for close contact at school last year, and that's 28% of our student enrollment, and 0.6 tested positive, and that's 16 students. When you consider the number of missed days in school, that is a significant loss of time and attention needed in the education of our students. School systems are required to report certain diseases to the Alabama Department of Public Health, and COVID-19 is one of them. Our nurses will fulfill this responsibility when we are made aware of a student that has a positive, and we will cooperate with public health in their responsibility of contact tracing. We do not have authority to compel parents to provide us information on a positive diagnosis of their child for any reason. Indoor air quality has long been a priority in providing healthy spaces for learning. Our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems that are installed in schools must meet certain codes and standards that include the introduction of outside air. Ventilation systems are enhanced with high performance filters with a MERV rating of 10 to 12, which is as high as we can employ, that allows our students for our systems to function properly. The minimum efficiency reporting value, or MERV rating, is a measure of particulates absorbed in the filters. Last year, we added air scrubbers in the ducts of our systems that add an additional layer of removing particulate matter in the air. I do want to emphasize that HVAC systems will not eliminate all risk to particulates such as a virus, but we take the additional steps to give as much protection as possible. Finally, we have standard operating procedures for cleaning and disinfecting. Our products are registered with the FDA and are considered hospital grade. Cleaning and disinfecting of classrooms and common spaces is done routinely throughout the days of the school week. One final note regarding recommendations provided for our schools. Alabama law prohibits schools from requiring COVID-19 vaccines as a condition of enrollment. Vaccinations are considered an important part of the mitigation recommendations of the spread of COVID-19, and families must make informed decisions about this. The school system, however, is not involved in that decision. Teaching and learning are the priorities of our school system, and we believe they are best accomplished in the traditional setting on campus. Traditional instruction will be provided for students pre-K through 12, and remote instruction was made an option in May for students in 6 through 12. This continues to be our plan for this year, and it will be done accompanied by the layered strategies for health and safety that are part of the plan that I've mentioned. And that plan is available online under our Students and Families tab. Unlike last year, schools are not, and more importantly, communities are not under a public health order related to any recommendations. The discourse of recommendations is focused primarily on schools where students spend about 20% of their week. Should we be placed under an order or given a mandate by those best in positions of authority for determining decisions related to public health, we will certainly comply. Should our system experience patterns of infections found through contact tracing, we will work with public health officials in determining appropriate actions. We adapted our plan 4 times last year, and we will do so as necessary this year. It is important to note that we have an enhanced plan for precautions and procedures for this and for instruction that we had in place last year, and we'll use it as needed. So I welcome any comments that you have or questions you have for me.
Would you just speak to the toolkit that's coming out?
The Alabama Department of Public Health will release a toolkit next week, and the toolkit last year was a set of recommendations, guidances on various things that range anywhere from instruction and intervention to health practices to quarantining, all of the details that were laid out. I will expect something similar this year. I really have no idea what's going to be in the plan. But should we have to pivot for some particular reason, we will be able to do that, and we'll do that. I will tell you that 2 weeks is a long time before school starts, and when that information is released, we'll react to it.
It's expected
accordingly.
next week.
I expect it sometime next week.
So do teachers know the expectations for their classrooms? Is it the same as last year, like the cleaning for the teachers in particular?
It's not to the same degree as last year. We don't have the expectation they're spraying and disinfecting. We believe we can do that through our routine procedure with our custodial staff. It'll be available to them if they want to use it, but we don't have that same level of expectation.
And to be clear on the notifications, right?
Yeah.
So I know parents were used to receiving a note that says your child, or a note or a call, your child's gonna be quarantined. That will all be coming from the Department of Health, not from our school nurses.
What we did last year were notifications that an exposure might have occurred. And we did that at such a massive volume that I found it to be largely ineffective. And if you get those time after time during the week, that became almost like crying wolf, I think, in many circumstances. We don't have a plan to do that at this time, but we'll pivot if we need to, if patterns would suggest otherwise. But that is something Brenda and I have been discussing with the ladies this afternoon. We don't plan to do it at this point. That's not part of contact tracing as much as we wanted to just give heads up. You may get contact traced is what that amounted to.
The quarantining itself will come from the health department.
Quarantine is the contact tracing quarantine is a function of health department. I feel certain we're gonna have to cooperate with them in some manner, particularly if it's seating arrangements or whatever the cases may be. What we want to make sure we don't do is to allow a quarantine to capture more students than it should.
Yes.
You know, so that's something that our nurses will certainly be a part of.
Have they changed the days of how long quarantine is?
No, still the same.
Okay.
Quarantine's still in play, for anyone that's not vaccinated.
Which
Is it
is-
still-
I know, but I'm saying
How
are
many
the
days?
days the same?
14.
It is 14.
14. 10,
Ten.
10, excuse me, 10,
Okay,
10.
I thought
10
they
days,
changed
1,
it.
Is the distance still 6?
The distance the distance you're finding in recommendations from CDC is more like 3 feet. And we don't have that written in the plan. We want to use it to the extent possible. And so I'm careful not to commit our teachers to something that may be, because, you know, I was in a lot of rooms last year. I was in a lot of classrooms last year, and there was great instruction taking place, great work going on in buildings, but that is a really difficult thing to put in a plan and commit to provide appropriate instruction. So to the extent we can maintain distance, we
Because
Oh,
all of
want
our
to do
kids will be back in the classroom.
That's
We will
right.
not be virtual.
that. That's right.
How many, out of curiosity, how many kids, 6 to 12, will be virtual?
Our count was
I
6
think
and
it's 6 or 7.
Yeah.
That's
6 or 7 students. For registration.
I think a couple of things important to note here. Like Dr. Freeman said, this staff continues to monitor, as well as anybody, the up-to-the-minute COVID conditions. So please don't think this is something carved in stone that cannot change. He's used the term pivot several times now. So if the situation calls for it, then unfortunately we have experience at doing things to make people more comfortable. So please know that. Also, on this entire panel up here, except for Mr. Boone at the end, who I'm the only one who currently does not have children in this system. So this is not professional people that are sitting up here throwing out ideas and mandates. These people are making decisions for not only your children, but their children as well. And everybody takes it very, very serious. And then lastly, Dr. Freeman said it again. I just want to make it clear because I know how things went last year. The quarantining is not going to be taken care of by our school nurses. Please do not call, text, email our nurses 24 hours a day, telling them that, you know, somebody was at a party at somebody's house and there were 30 of them and they weren't wearing a mask. That's not up to the school. It's not up to the school nurse. So please let our nurses do their jobs and take care of the children as they're feeling bad or they're sick. They are not a reporting source when it comes to COVID. Anything to add on that?
Yes.
Is that good, concise, clear? Okay. All right. And that being said, I do know that there are some people here who want to make a comment. And first off, I want you to know we welcome them. Thank you. I think some of us have talked via email or phone calls as it is already. So thank you. We do appreciate the manner in which you have approached to speak to the board. So thank you on that as well. I do need to do a little housekeeping here as to laying the groundwork for making a presentation to us. So first off, we would ask you to come one at a time up to the podium, state your name and your address, and then let us know what it is that you're speaking about. Also, and this is going to be the housekeeping part of it here. In public session, the board will not hear personal complaints against particular school personnel or against any person connected with the school system. Other means are provided whereby the board may consider and dispose of legitimate complaints involving individuals and employees within the school system. So you have a maximum of 5 minutes each, and we appreciate the comments and we appreciate you, what you have to say. Do I have anybody that would like to come up? Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
My name is Watts Olchey. I'm at 1548 Panorama Drive. I have 3 children in the school system and going into 4th, 6th, and 9th grades. So we're spread across 3 schools this year. Last year, we took advantage of the remote option because we could. I work from home. My wife doesn't work, and we thought it's the best we could do, you know, for us and for the community. We didn't require it. It was hard, as you know, on us, and it was hard on the teachers. And so I want to commend everyone who is involved in that for the work that they did and the plans that you guys came up with. I think last year you guys did an excellent job of coming up with options, especially with the time that you had to prepare that, and the way that I'm very impressed with how you've done that. We are looking forward to sending our kids back to school. Okay, I'm not looking, I don't want to keep my kids at home anymore. It's gotten old real fast. But there's a couple of concerns I have. Can I hand something in?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
This is a surplus, y'all just kind of take it down. All right. So, I'll just wait. Okay. As far as I'm aware, the the notice where we intended to go back to basically normal procedures, right? Like was on May 17th with your email about the summer and fall plan. Okay. And at that time, cases were trending down and vaccinations were available and people were getting vaccinated. And through most of the summer, that's remained relatively flat. Except for the past 2 weeks. I don't like, I wanted to go to the source. I didn't want to go to some, whatever website to find the data I wanted to see, right? So I went to the CDC. They have data sets available to the public. You can query those data sets. I can, if you care to analyze this data, I will be more than happy to take you through what I did to get to derive it, okay? But the most up-to-date data I could find was for the state of Alabama. The stuff they have for Jefferson County is not current enough yet. And what we're seeing is in like the last 2 weeks, there's been a 5-fold increase in rates. Okay. So this is my concern. There is no option for remote for elementary. The elementary school kids are the only population that is not eligible for vaccine. Okay. Now I get that we don't think that COVID affects them as much, but they are very much vectors for this, for the community, and it's not 100% safe for them to get it. I'm not asking for people to vaccinate their kids. That's up to them. Okay. But we all know kids are close, especially elementary school kids. And I know that social distancing is going to be extremely hard in the elementary, okay? All I'm asking is if we don't have an option for remote, to institute a policy of masks, okay? Because the mask works better for the person that's carrying the disease, not transmitting it, than it does filtering it, okay? I know I looked at your things where you've implemented HVAC things and additional measures. I went to those companies' websites and read their stuff. At the very bottom of the page, on their front page says, we still recommend people wear masks according to the CDC and practice social distancing. So you've seen fit to bring in vendors to increase the air quality. Those vendors state, this is not a substitute for masks, and I don't think you guys are claiming it is, right? So all I'm asking is to do some mitigating action, right? And maybe that's in your plan. Maybe it'll happen the next week. I just wanted to call to your attention this increase because it's not publicized, because it's pretty current. And I have one more ask. Since you're not notifying the parents directly, and I understand you made it very clear as your reasoning on the contact tracing and the, I understand where you're coming from, and that brought a lot of clarity. You are still required to report, is it to the county or to the state?
States.
Okay. I went and looked at the website where that's reported in the form. It's not an ideal form. I don't know if you've seen it. As someone who's worked with it could probably testify. If the state's going to do contact tracing, I understand that's their job. Okay. I want to make sure they're getting the data that's relevant for them to be able to do that, right? And you mentioned seating charts and things like that. I'm curious to know, as part of your standard reporting, what additional data is done aside from just the name, right? Because I want to make sure the state has what they need to be able to do their job well, right? And I think one way, in addition, we could do that. I noticed that the website that you had last year for COVID-19 has been taken offline. Like you have a site with the school and it's like /COVID-19. That's gonna be activated. It's like 404, not fail. I would like to see, when you report to the state, I'd love to see like a weekly or monthly report by school, how many cases you reported. Just a number. We reported this many cases for this school this week. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Leah Dufer. My address is 464 Best Club Way. I have 2 children at Vestavia Elementary East, and I'm also talking to you to reconsider the masking policy for the upcoming school year. My husband, Dr. Hines Dufer, spoke to Dr. Freeman a couple of weeks ago. He's an emergency medicine physician and has been on the front line of treating COVID in our community. He has personally seen young people in their teens and 20s in the ER having heart failure, strokes, blood clots, and liver failure after having a seemingly mild case of the original strain of COVID. Now we have the Delta strain in Alabama. It is attacking more young people and has a viral load of 1,000 times more than the original strain. Even today, my husband has seen fully vaccinated patients who now have the new Delta strain, and case numbers in Alabama are rising rapidly. And I also wanted to talk about saying we know masks work, but we can't just rely on wearing a mask as individuals. Mask wearing requires the cooperation of everyone. One thing that I'm really concerned about is the iWave air system that you have installed in the schools. My husband, when he met with you, Dr. Freeman, a couple of weeks ago, and you told him about it, he looked it up. And these systems do nothing to stop the spread of COVID. We saw the same disclaimer saying that this is not a substitute for wearing masks. And in fact, these ionizer systems are known producers of ozone, a gas that can cause respiratory symptoms, asthma attacks, headaches, and nausea when levels in the air rise. Today, I spoke with Dr. Miranda Curtis, an adult pulmonary and severe asthma specialist at UAB School of Medicine. She said that currently there's insufficient information to reassure that it's safe, particularly in a building with multiple units running simultaneously. In fact, the U.S. Department of Education just released a statement for this school year saying that some products sold as air cleaners, such as the iWave air system, intentionally generate ozone and are not safe to use when people are present. Dr. Curtis suggests that the board has another meeting to provide more information on this system and what safety measures you've already put into place, such as meeting with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Dr. Curtis said that she would be willing to loop in a number of other adult and pediatric pulmonologists to discuss this with medical input. Your guidance should come from the respected medical and scientific institutions of our country. Please reinstate the mask mandate and either remove the airway systems from the classrooms or provide air quality testing with proof of ozone emissions. And I have copies of the literature I had mentioned, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm actually Dr. Curtis. If you'd like, I can speak next, if you don't mind. That might be useful follow-up. I'm Dr. Miranda Curtis. I don't currently have children in the school system. I have a 5-year-old who just turned 5 in July, and I actually feel uncomfortable sending him to public school until he's had a vaccine. So I'm going to wait until the vaccines are approved. I'm hoping this fall. He'll continue to do another year of basic training. So, but I do live in Vestavia, and there was sort of a long story how I ended up coordinating sort of outreach among physicians who live in Vestavia regarding whether they had concerns or whether they would like to communicate with the school board about the CDC and American Academy of Pediatric recommendations regarding school reopening. And this, Dr. Freeman and the board was supplied with a letter. Granted, it was only this afternoon from 26 area physicians endorsing the recommendations from the CDC and the AAP. So regarding the IRAD system, I actually didn't know that that was in place. And so this was really sort of a communication that we were just having as far as, the fact that they don't actually know anything about this system in terms of how much ozone it generates. I think that there's some EPA data that's been published, regarding safe levels, but generally, it would probably be, it may be interesting for parents if you sort of gather your data and then can present it to them as far as, that system. But it did seem clear from the vendor itself that it's not a system that's meant for COVID virus inactivation. So I don't think that it could really supplant the use of masking in terms of limiting COVID spread within the air building. And masks have a benefit in terms of controlling droplet spread. There is some evidence for COVID spread through aerosol, but there is also compelling evidence that masking is effective. So I'm happy to, continue to have a dialogue if you would like to speak to us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say something on the I-wave filtration that people are talking about right now. At no time has this board or the central office ever said this is an end-all cure-all. It is an enhanced part of the filtration system. It was implemented a year ago. And a year ago, you look at the data that has changed between a year ago and today. And today it's the same thing. We're standing on sand. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what works. We are trying things, and this is part of what we are trying. So I just want to make clear that we're not saying this is in place to kill the COVID vaccine in our filtration system. Anybody have a comment on that? Does anybody else have anything else? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. And the board is always open to talk to people. I hope you know that. So we appreciate it. All right. With that, our meeting is over. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.